3 men were obsessed with her, and they were all searching for her together because she was currently on the run. Among these 3 men were Sisrain, the crown prince, Heinrich, the candidate for the next Tower Master, and Kyle, a notoriously cruel guild leader. Currently, she was reading a newspaper, seeing that the 3 of them were openly searching for her, so much so that it had become the hot topic of the news. Suddenly, she felt a presence in her room. It turned out that Sisrain had found her hiding place. He told her how much he missed her and said that she couldn't run away anymore, all while tying a red ribbon around her wrist. But it didn't end there, as Heinrich and Kyle arrived at that exact same moment. Left with no choice, she simply resigned herself to her fate as memories rushed back, reminding her of how these 3 men became so obsessed with her in the first place. Flashback. A few years earlier, when she was 12 years old, she met Sisrain in the kitchen. For the first time, she greeted him cheerfully. However, Sisrain merely told her that she shouldn't talk to him, calling himself a dirty child. She ignored his self-deprecation, insisted on talking to him anyway, and even told him that when he grew up, he would become stronger than anyone else. Her words made Sisrain blush in embarrassment. How did she know all this? Because she was actually transmigrated into a novel she had read before. In the novel, the story begins in an orphanage named the Forest. In reality, it was a secret institution used to awaken children's powers. These children were treated merely as high-value merchandise, later sent to nobles as status symbols. Heinrich was depicted in the novel as a perfect yet arrogant character, burdened by the trauma of being abandoned by his parents. He used to bully Sisrain back when Sisrain was still weak. Once Sisrain's powers awakened and he became the crown prince, he took merciless revenge on Heinrich. Upon realizing she had entered the novel's world, she devised 2 plans. First, she would help Sisrain live comfortably in the forest just like the other children. Second, she would make Heinrich and Sisrain get along. To do this, she needed to alter the timeline of their first meeting. In the original story, Heinrich felt disgusted by the state of Sisrain's injured leg. She wanted to prevent Sisrain's leg from getting hurt in the first place, hoping that if they became childhood friends, future destruction could be avoided. However, she arrived too late. Sisrain's leg was already injured. She immediately set off to find medicine for him. Secretly, she and her classmate Sasha snuck into the medical room. To get there, they had to pass the teacher's room, whose door was always wide open. Luckily, she had brought a sleep-inducing candle. She lit the candle, successfully putting the teacher to sleep. Once inside the medical room, she grabbed a healing medicine for Sisrain. It was truly magical, but the moment it was poured over his leg, the wound healed instantly because it turned out to be a potion. She was thrilled to have healed his leg, but Sisrain looked gloomy. It turned out he was deeply moved, as this was the first time anyone had ever cared about him. Annette promised that she would always be his healer. When Sisrain asked why she was doing all this for him, she replied that it was because he was such a pretty child. Sisrain then softly murmured that the pretty one was actually Annette, making her heart skip a beat as she flustered completely. Right after that, she urged Sisrain to leave with her. However, they were spotted by Lady Mimosa, the highest overseer at the forest, and a cruel woman who had set the trap for Sisrain. When caught, Annette quickly made up an excuse, saying they were just returning from the bathroom and heading back to their room. But as they turned to leave, Lady Mimosa ordered them to stop and demanded that Sisrain remove his hood. Lady Mimosa could not find out that the boy with her was Sisrain. Thinking fast, Annette lied again, claiming he was Heinrich, who was terrified of ghosts and kept his hood on for comfort. Fortunately, Lady Mimosa believed her lie and let them go. After that close call, Annette told Sisrain to stay in her room for the time being. The next day, Heinrich was being introduced to many people due to his remarkable achievements. In front of the crowd, he put on a bright smile, gracefully accepting every compliment thrown his way. However, behind their backs, he was a completely different person. He was fuming with rage, feeling utterly disgusted by the nobles' hypocritical behavior. He had only been enduring this political farce in the hopes of finding respectable adoptive parents. Now he was thoroughly sick of the act and wanted nothing more than to return to the forest to see Annette. Unable to handle his outburst, they finally brought him back to the forest. Upon his arrival, instead of Annette, he ran into Sasha, who was holding a letter addressed to him from Annette. In the letter, Annette asked Heinrich to meet her under the large tree. When Heinrich arrived at the designated spot, Annette introduced him to Sisrain. However, Heinrich didn't look pleased at all, especially when he noticed that Annette was holding Sisrain's hand. Annette asked Heinrich to be friends with Sisrain, but Heinrich was deeply jealous of him. In a fit of jealousy, he shoved Cizrain and declared that Annette belonged only to him. Cizrain calmly asked on what grounds Heinrich could make such a claim. Blushing, Heinrich announced that when he grew up, he was going to marry Annette, leaving Annette completely stunned. Cizrain merely laughed and pointed out that siblings couldn't get married, which left Heinrich feeling pouted and humiliated. After Heinrich stormed off, Annette apologized to Cizrain for Heinrich's childish behavior. She couldn't help but shower Heinrich with praise in front of Cizrain. Her words made Cizrain jealous, prompting him to ask if she liked Heinrich. When she admitted that she did, Cizrain's expression turned gloomy. Suddenly, Lady Mimosa arrived to punish Cizrain for breaking the rules. Cizrain had hidden in a cave because he refused to take a bath, but Annette immediately stepped in to defend him. She explained to Lady Mimosa that Cizrain was terrified of water, which was why he was avoiding the bath. She begged Lady Mimosa for a 3-day chance to help him overcome his fear, promising to take full responsibility if she failed. Lady Mimosa agreed and granted her 3 days. The following day, Annette racked her brain for a way to help Cizrain overcome his fear. She came up with the idea of giving him a bubble toy. Cizrain had no idea what it was, prompting Heinrich to mock him for not knowing something so simple. Annette showed Cizrain how to blow bubbles, but Cizrain looked confused and confessed that he had never played with toys before because doing so would get him punished. Hearing this, Annette felt both shocked and heartbroken. She continued teaching him, but as painful memories resurfaced, Cizrain hesitated. Heinrich taunted him again, while boasting about himself. Wanting to earn the praise Annette gave Heinrich, Cizrain gathered his courage and tried blowing bubbles, and succeeded on his very first attempt. The 3 of them ended up playing together until the bubble mixture ran out. Annette then told Cizrain to look at his wet hands and asked if water was really as scary as he thought. Cizrain agreed that it wasn't and thanked her sincerely. On the final day before her deadline, with Lady Mimosa, Annette gathered the children for a water play session in the garden. They were split into teams, each distinguished by a coloured scarf. The red scarf team was the raspberry team, and the light brown scarf team was the peanut team. Annette deliberately paired Cizrain and Heinrich on the same team, hoping they would bond and become best friends. Once the game started, instead of splashing the opposing team, Heinrich immediately splashed Cizrain. Annette panicked, worried that Cizrain would retreat into his shell, but to her surprise, Cizrain splashed Heinrich back. It turned out Cizrain was annoyed rather than afraid, and the two ended up in an intense splash war, making all the other children burst into laughter. Their fun was suddenly cut short when a man barged in and grabbed Cizrain by the arm. The man was Viscount Futero, the very person who had traumatized Cizrain with water in the first place, known for his cruelty toward children. Annette rushed to defend Cizrain, but as the man raised his hand to strike her, Heinrich bit the old man's hand, yelling at him to leave his sister alone. The commotion quieted down when Lady Mimosa arrived and permitted the Viscount to explain his presence. The old man claimed that Cizrain belonged to him as a slave who had escaped to the forest, and he demanded to take him back. Lady Mimosa countered that children residing in the forest could not simply be taken away. The man offered an absurdly high price to buy Cizrain out, but Lady Mimosa refused to pay it, prompting the man to declare he would take the matter to court. Before leaving, he spitefully told Annette and Cizrain that they were nothing more than abandoned trash, driving Annette to punch the wall in fury, which startled Cizrain. Determined to stop him, Annette and Heinrich investigated the Viscount's background. They discovered that his territory was currently suffering from a contagious plague, causing other merchants to cut ties out of fear, driving his businesses and his personal wealth to the brink of bankruptcy. Armed with this information, Annette formulated a plan for the trial the next day. When everyone assembled at court the following morning, the Viscount arrogantly threatened Annette, claiming victory was already his. Meanwhile, Lady Mimosa demonstrated to the presiding lord how well behaved the children of the forest were. As the proceedings began, the Viscount suddenly sneezed right in front of the lord. Annette seized the opportunity to point out that a contagious disease was ravaging the Viscount's territory. 3 hours prior, Annette had secretly planted peaches near the entrance because she knew the Viscount was severely allergic to them. Walking past the children greeting the lord, the Viscount had inhaled the peach scent, triggering his sneezing fit. Terrified of the plague, the lord immediately shut down the trial and ruled that Cizrain would remain at the forest. The Viscount pleaded desperately, but the lord refused to listen. Sometime later, Annette was giving Cicerain a haircut. She complimented his handsome new look, which instantly made Heinrich jealous. Heinrich demanded a haircut too, but when Annette pointed out that his hair was already neat, he insisted until she pretended to trim his hair anyway, leaving him utterly delighted with the result. Afterwards, Annette and Cicerain met with Lady Mimosa, who praised Annette's efforts and confirmed that Cicerain would not be punished. Lady Mimosa then asked to speak with Annette in private, revealing that someone had been digging into Cicerain's past, seemingly intent on forcing him into slavery. Shocked by the news, Annette agreed to help Lady Mimosa investigate the culprit. Later during class, the teacher, Miss Lynn, was leading an apple-picking activity. While the other children excitedly gathered apples, Cicerain and Heinrich stood still like statues. Annette casually remarked that boys who picked apples were really cool, sending both Heinrich and Cicerain sprinting off into the orchard. Cicerain picked a flawless apple and presented it to Annette, who accepted it happily while thanking him. Inwardly, however, Annette pondered who could be trying to harm Cicerain. Her thoughts drifted to Vivian, a girl who constantly followed Heinrich around and mirrored his every dislike. In the original novel, Vivian had been one of Cicerain's bullies simply because Heinrich despised him. Seeking answers, Annette slipped into the archive room to examine the children's records. There she happened to see Vivian giving Heinrich a letter, which Heinrich promptly tore to pieces. Aside from Vivian, Annette couldn't help but suspect Heinrich as well. Suddenly, Heinrich ran up, hugged her from behind, and proudly showed off the apples he had picked. Annette gently reminded him that she strongly disliked bad children, to which Heinrich promised he would always be good for her sake. Annette silently prayed that Heinrich wasn't the one plotting against Cicerain in this timeline. Afterward, Annette warned Cicerain that someone was trying to hurt him. Cicerain merely sighed, admitting he was used to being mistreated and hated by others. Annette reassured him that she liked him very much and that the other children did too, wanting to lift his spirits. Just then, a little girl burst into tears because her doll, a gift from her prospective adoptive parents, had gone missing. Everyone began searching for it until a boy announced that he had found the doll inside Cicerain's desk drawer, leaving everyone stunned. The crowd immediately turned on Cicerain, but before the tension could boil over, Lady Mimosa arrived to inquire about the commotion. Upon being told that Cicerain had stolen the doll, Annette vehemently defended him, insisting he was innocent. However, the others pointed out that the doll was indeed found in his desk. Lady Mimosa asked the girl who lost the doll if she really believed Cicerain took it. The girl mused that perhaps a fairy had moved it, and the other young girls quickly agreed. Lady Mimosa then turned to Cicerain and asked if he had touched the doll. Haunted by memories of being falsely accused in the past, Cicerain hesitated, but remembering that Annette truly believed in him, he firmly denied taking it. Lady Mimosa declared the matter closed, noting that finding the doll under his desk could simply be a coincidence, and since the item was recovered, there was no need to escalate the issue. Afterward, Annette checked on Cicerain, but the etiquette teacher chimed in, sternly lecturing Cicerain about the evils of stealing. Sick of the teacher's constant hostility, Annette challenged her, asking how an etiquette teacher could relentlessly corner a student without proof. Annette went so far as to make a bet. If Cicerain proved to be innocent, the teacher would have to give Annette her family crest ring. Seeking clues, Annette spoke privately with the girl who had lost the doll, whose name was Raina. Annette asked if she had shown off her adoption gift to anyone. Raina explained that she had shown it to the entire magic class. Knowing Heinrich didn't attend magic class, Annette suspected Vivian was the prime suspect. However, Raina added that she had also shown the doll to Heinrich privately. Annette's heart sank. She desperately hoped Heinrich wasn't involved. After careful consideration, she decided to set a trap for the real culprit and shared her plan with Lady Mimosa. After speaking with Lady Mimosa, Heinrich approached Annette and asked what they had been discussing. Annette brushed off the question and asked why Heinrich had been gone for so long before Miss Lynn's class. Heinrich explained that he had been meeting with Lady Mimosa. Knowing Lady Mimosa was actively investigating the person targeting Cicerain, Annette asked for details, but Heinrich playfully claimed it was a secret. As they walked away, Annette worried whether Lady Mimosa suspected Heinrich too, deeply unsettled by the thought that he might be behind it all. Later, Annette bought Cicerain new clothes since he barely had any outfits. When Cicerain changed into them, he looked completely transformed. Blushing, Cicerain admitted he felt self-conscious, but Annette showered him with compliments. She praised the courage he had shown earlier when standing up for himself, and Cicerain shyly admitted he only found his courage because of her. Proud of him, Annette told him never to feel insecure again and vowed to catch the person framing him. Over the next few days, other children's belongings vanished and kept mysteriously reappearing in Cicerain's locker. The students began to believe Cicerain was indeed a thief, and the instructors demanded his punishment. Annette firmly blocked them, insisting that no action be taken until Lady Mimosa arrived. When Lady Mimosa appeared, she questioned a boy named Robert about when his toy had gone missing. Robert replied that it vanished after herbology class A. Other teachers argued that Cicerain had plenty of free time to sneak out and steal it. The atmosphere turned icy as Lady Mimosa announced that Cicerain would be punished, and if another incident occurred, he would be expelled. The other children mocked Annette for blindly defending him, and Vivian approached to sneer at her effort. Unbeknownst to them, this was all part of Annette's master plan, which she had prearranged with Lady Mimosa. Lady Mimosa was impressed by her strategy, though she warned Annette that if the real thief wasn't caught, Cicerain would still face the consequences. Annette confidently promised that she would catch the perpetrator. The following day, Annette prepared 2 items to use as bait. During the previous incident with Robert's missing toy, both Heinrich and Vivian had taken turns leaving herbology class B, making them both suspects. Annette approached Vivian first, showing off a family locating compass and claiming it was a priceless keepsake she had kept since childhood. After testing Vivian's reaction, Annette hurried off to find Heinrich. She tripped while running, but Heinrich caught her just in time. Thrilled to help her, Heinrich nevertheless expressed jealousy over how close she was with Cicerain and admitted he was dressing up nicely so he wouldn't look inferior to him. Annette then pretended to accidentally drop a fountain pen, claiming it was a precious heirloom from her parents. Seeing Heinrich look downcast since he had no keepsakes from his own parents, Annette gave him a brooch instead. When Heinrich tried to refuse such a valuable gift, Annette told him that what was truly precious to her was him, causing Heinrich to blush furiously before accepting it. The next morning, Annette checked Cicerain's desk before the class arrived to see what had been planted inside. Sure enough, she found the compass. Turning around, she confronted Vivian, who was watching nearby. Vivian desperately denied it, but Annette revealed that no one else knew about the compass. Furthermore, the compass was actually a fake lent by Lady Mimosa specifically to trap her. Backed into a corner, Vivian finally broke down and confessed that she wanted Cicerain expelled from the forest for Heinrich's sake, knowing how much Heinrich disliked him. Furious, Heinrich snapped at Vivian, telling her he never asked for her help. Annette made Vivian apologize to Raina, Robert, and Cicerain for stealing their belongings and framing innocent people. Lady Mimosa immediately handed down Vivian's punishment. She was to be sent to the forest strict disciplinary temple, a notorious place where troubled children were sent and whose rigorous regimen made it a true nightmare. As Vivian wept and pleaded for mercy, the etiquette teacher quietly tried to slip out of the classroom, terrified of losing her family crest ring from the bet. But before she could escape, she found Annette and Cicerain standing right in front of her. Annette intercepted the teacher and demanded that she apologize to Cicerain. Since she had wrongly accused Cicerain of being the thief, the least she could do was offer a sincere apology. Unwillingly, the teacher apologized to Cicerain. Just as she was about to flee, Annette reminded her of her promise and demanded the ring. The ring was none other than the Pluto ring, an artifact containing the soul of the Pluto clan, heirs to ancient magic. By rubbing its stone, the bound mage could be summoned from anywhere. The teacher reluctantly handed it over, secretly assuming nothing would happen because Annette would not know the activation spell, and that the ring would eventually find its way back to her anyway. Unbeknownst to her, Annette already knew the spell and recited it on the spot before casually walking away, leaving the stunned teacher behind. Annette was thrilled to acquire the Pluto ring, deciding to keep it safe, confident that it would prove useful in the future. Suddenly, Heinrich came over, asking to sleep beside her. Annette embraced him, feeling a wave of sadness over having suspected him earlier. To her, Heinrich was just an innocent, sweet boy. Gathering her courage, she confessed everything to him, including her temporary suspicions. Heinrich listened attentively to her story. While Annette feared he might be hurt, Heinrich reacted calmly, telling her that had he been in her shoes, he would have suspected himself too. Feeling immense guilt, Annette listened as Heinrich reassured her that she had done nothing wrong and that she was the best older sister in the whole world, adding softly that he was the truly bad one. 30 minutes prior, Heinrich had confronted Vivian. Vivian screamed at him, threatening to expose his malicious deeds to everyone and accusing him of using her. Heinrich merely laughed in response. As Vivian rushed to tell Annette the truth, Heinrich cut her off, warning her never to speak a word of it to Annette. Since Annette disliked bad children, any mischievous deeds had to be done in complete secrecy. Terrified by his demeanor, Vivian warned him that Annette would eventually discover his true nature and leave him. Heinrich calmly replied that even if Annette left, he would pursue her to the ends of the earth. Though he walked away nonchalantly, Vivian's words left a lingering anxiety in his heart that Annette might truly leave him one day. In his childhood, Heinrich had a legendary father, the most powerful mage, master of the magic tower, and a wealthy duke. Yet Heinrich lived a humble life, alone with his mother. The day finally arrived when he and his mother were to meet his father. Heinrich worried that his father would not like him, but his mother reassured him, saying his father was bound to love such a handsome boy. However, their meeting turned out to be a nightmare. His father despised him, rejecting him as an illegitimate child and refusing to acknowledge him. They returned home, but that day marked the last time Heinrich ever saw his mother, as she passed away shortly after. Devastated and alone, Heinrich wept for his loss. In his darkest hour, Lady Mimosa appeared and invited him to join the forest. Heinrich entered the institution, but despite his fame, no one dared to approach him because of his intimidating aura. Then one day someone invited him to play. It was Annette who asked him to play house. Heinrich refused, but Annette refused to give up, constantly following him around and trying to get close to him until he finally caved in. To scare her off, Heinrich invited her to play a dangerous game, crossing a frozen lake with thin ice, assuming she would run away in fear. Instead, Annette walked onto the ice without a moment's hesitation. Panicking, Heinrich watched her fall through the breaking ice and immediately dived in to save her. From that day forward, the two were inseparable, and Heinrich grew to love and cherish Annette more than anyone else in the world. Back in the present, Heinrich confessed his bad deeds in a soft whisper to the sleeping Annette, admitting he was a bad boy who only acted out of fear that someone would take her away from him, before softly apologizing. Unbeknownst to Heinrich, Cicerine overheard every word. The next morning, a notice was posted regarding Vivian receiving severe penalty points for her actions. Cicerine and Heinrich joined the crowd at the bulletin board, but Heinrich asked Cicerine to read the announcement for him, as his eyes were swollen from crying the night before. When Cicerine asked why his eyes were swollen, Heinrich remained silent. Cicerine then directly asked Heinrich if he was the actual mastermind who had manipulated Vivian into committing those bad deeds. Heinrich froze in panic, wondering how Cicerine knew. Cicerine warned him that if Annette ever found out, it would break her heart. Suddenly, Annette arrived and warmly took both of their hands, but Cicerine and Heinrich immediately pulled away in different directions. Annette then noticed another announcement on the board, indicating that the level test was scheduled for tomorrow. Elsewhere, Lady Mimosa was conversing with a shadowy figure about Annette's extraordinary dormant talent. Lady Mimosa revealed her intention to forcibly awaken Annette's power during the upcoming level test. If successful, Annette would stand at the absolute pinnacle of magic wielders. If she failed, it could cost her life. The next morning, all the children gathered for the level test. Instructor Rose explained that the forest operated on a 9-level system, with most children residing at level 6. Each student would enter a zone corresponding to their level to defeat monsters, which would determine their level ranking. Annette had no desire to rank up, wishing only to survive at her current level. She then noticed that Cicerine was fitted with a power restraining device, likely due to his immense hidden potential. Meanwhile, Heinrich grumbled about the test, boasting that no matter how many times he took it, he would always achieve level 1, the highest tier. Instructor Rose sternly told Heinrich not to be arrogant and reminded everyone that in an emergency, they could summon her using their distress necklaces. Before sending them off, Instructor Rose whispered specifically to Annette to be exceptionally careful, leaving Annette bewildered as to why she was the only one warned. With that, the test officially began. In the lower level zone, Annette and Sasha walked together. While Sasha was mesmerized by the scenery, Annette felt an unsettling vibe about the place. Suddenly, strange objects appeared, which were magic wands that granted them power. Shortly after, 2 cute-looking monsters emerged. Sasha hesitated, but Annette swiftly eliminated them using her wand. Unexpectedly, the wand activated on its own, dragging Annette far away from Sasha. In a high-level zone, Heinrich was effortlessly defeating massive monsters. Just as he let his guard down, thinking he had won, a monster suddenly revived and nearly knocked him over. Before he could fall, Sisrain rushed in and saved him. Annoyed, Heinrich asked what Sisrain was doing there, assuming he had taken a wrong turn into the high-level zone, and tauntingly told him to leave. Yet feeling indebted for the rescue, Heinrich could not bring himself to abandon Sisrain. Suddenly, another horde of monsters ambushed them. Panicking for Sisrain's safety, Heinrich watched in absolute shock as Sisrain calmly unleashed an astonishing amount of magic power, obliterating the threat. It turned out Sisrain was exceptionally sensitive to sound, which was how he heard Heinrich falling and rushed to help. After defeating the monsters, Sisrain immediately set off to find Annette, sensing a dangerous presence heading her way. Meanwhile, Annette encountered a monster that appeared to be a low-level entity. Thinking she could easily gain extra points, she attacked it with her wand. However, instead of dying, the monster mutated into a terrifying beast. Terrified, Annette screamed for help and activated her distress necklace, but Instructor Rose did not respond. Just as despair took over, Heinrich and Sisrain arrived in the distance. Sisrain broke his power-restraining seal and sprinted toward her, but they were still too far away. Believing her life was about to end, Annette closed her eyes in resignation. Suddenly her consciousness was transported to a realm where a mysterious voice instructed her to recite an incantation. Repeating the words, Annette felt her dormant power awaken. Unleashing a devastating burst of magic, she destroyed the monster and collapsed unconscious. When Annette woke up in a safe hideout, she found her distress necklace, along with Heinrich's and Sisrain's, completely broken. Unable to contact Instructor Rose, the two boys had brought her to safety. Sisrain carried Annette, sparking Heinrich's jealousy as he whined that he wanted to carry her instead. Elsewhere, the instructors were in a state of chaos. Lady Mimosa was furious. Her original plan was merely to push Annette into a high level to force her awakening, but someone had sabotaged the distress necklaces of all three children. The instructors immediately launched a search party. Annette checked her surroundings and found a note left by Heinrich, explaining that he and Sisrain had gone to hunt for food. Realizing she possessed awakened magical powers, Annette felt a wave of pride. She considered using Master Julius's Pluto ring to contact the institution, but a mysterious voice suddenly echoed in her mind, warning her not to return to the orphanage yet because it was still too dangerous, before fading away. Shortly after, Heinrich and Sisrain returned with food. Heinrich immediately threw his arms around Annette, babbling about how worried he was. Sisrain then asked if it was time to summon Master Julius using the ring, but remembering the voice's warning, Annette insisted they stay put for now without mentioning the mysterious voice. Suddenly, a stomach growled, prompting them to eat dinner first. When Annette asked how they decided to hunt for food together, Heinrich complained that he wanted to stay by her side, but Sisrain had forced him to come along. Sisrain countered that he deliberately dragged Heinrich along, so he would not be left alone with Annette, calling Heinrich dangerous. Heinrich put on a cute face and feigned innocence, asking why he was dangerous. Ignoring him, Sisrain asked Annette again if they would call Master Julius after eating. Annette reassured him that staying put was fine, though Sisrain urged her to tell him if anything was wrong, promising to protect her. Heinrich then offered food to Annette, only for Sisrain to snatch and eat it, sparking another childish bickering match that made Annette smile helplessly before they all drifted off to sleep. During the night, the mysterious voice returned. Annette opened her eyes to see a glowing figure who introduced himself as X, a guide who had come to explain her true powers and guide her. X transported Annette to an unfamiliar realm, where she encountered two figures she initially mistook for her parents, running to embrace them. Realizing her mistake, she blushed in embarrassment as the figures explained they were not her biological parents, but her divine guardians. Settling down for a serious conversation, the two guardians recounted the ancient origin of the Eldorado Empire. Long ago, the Grand Mage Exordium bestowed transcendental power upon humanity, giving birth to the Eldorado Empire and sparking rapid civilization growth. However, Exordium realized a perilous truth. Human hearts were strong, but their physical vessels were fragile. Without true strength, humanity would inevitably fall into slavery when the monster race invaded. Thus, Exordium staked his remaining life force to cast a grand magic spell, pushing human potential beyond its absolute limits. From then on, extraordinary individuals emerged, allowing humanity to repel the monster invasion. Before passing away, Exordium split his divine soul into two forces, fire and light, the very powers Annette now inherited. The two guardians formally introduced themselves, Sordi, the blue-haired embodiment of Exordium's light, and the red-haired embodiment of his fire. The power Annette had inadvertently used against the monster was Sordi's light. Expressing their affection for Annette, treating her like a cute little mochi, they revealed an even greater secret. Annette possessed the divine ability to absorb or amplify the magic of anyone at will, making her the supreme ruler of all magic power. When asked what she intended to do with such godlike authority, Annette proudly announced that she wanted to open a bakery. The guardians stood dumbfounded, amazed that someone holding the power of an empress simply wanted to bake bread without any political headaches. Sordi then strictly warned Annette to beware of Lady Mimosa, whose special eyes could see the colour of a person's soul, advising Annette to conceal her identity as Exordium's vessel for the time being. Annette woke up back in the hideout, where Heinrich and Cicerine were patiently waiting for her. Together, the three of them made their way back to the orphanage, where Annette was immediately brought before Lady Mimosa.